Join Rose and Gary, the pedaling duo, as we take you on an epic bicycle voyage around the world. This adventure spanned 10 months of travel, circling the globe and covering more than a third of the Earth's circumference on a tandem recumbent bicycle. Our adventure took us through 13 countries at a leisurely, relaxed pace. Our unusual mode of transportation enabled us to meet and spend time with people from diverse cultural backgrounds. As we traveled, we realized that we were getting an opportunity that very few people have in life. So come along with us on our dream of a lifetime and share our unique and fulfilling experience.
Welcome to Episode 2 of the Pedaling Duo's World Bicycle Adventure. As you recall in Episode 1, we left our home in Downers Grove and rode to the border of Canada. In this episode, we will continue on with our epic journey. We were finishing our last day of riding in the United States. If you remember, it was an action-packed 64-mile day, and we were about to cross the border into our first foreign country on this trip. We are going to cross into Canada by ferry at Marine City, Michigan. We had some time to kill before the ferry departed, so we made lunch and played in the St. Clair River.
We're at the Marine City ferry landing. We're about to take this little bitty ferry across the river, St. Clair River, into Canada on the other side.
Our vessel was a small ferry, and we were the only ones there for a while. Then a huge truck loaded on just before we sailed. We weren't sure we were going to make it across the river. Although we had only come 448 miles in the past 11 days, we had a real sense of accomplishment as we entered Canada. We also had a feeling of excited anticipation as we wondered what adventures we would experience in our first foreign country of the trip. We finished our milestone day with an overnight stay in Wallaceburg, Ontario. The next morning, we pulled out of town and had a clear, sunny day riding the farm roads. All of this fresh air made us hungry, so we decided to stop in the little town of Dresden to eat lunch. While eating, some local ladies told us about a sight not to be missed nearby.
We're in Ontario, close to the shores of Lake Erie, and we're back in the farm country, and we're at the Dawn Settlement. This settlement was started by a group of Canadians wanting to help the slaves from the United States coming up on the Underground Railroad. So they've developed this Dawn Settlement in 1841. It was a vocational school to teach the slaves how to read and write and other education skills, and vocations also, so that they could become self-sufficient. Now, when the abolitionists brought the slaves up, this was one of the stops on the Underground Railroad. And when the slaves were freed, many returned back to the United States, but others stayed here in Canada to contribute to society. The Henson House is right in front of me. This is not a recreation. This is the real house that Josiah Henson built when he came to Canada and started this settlement. He called it the Dawn Settlement.
This cabin was home to Josiah and his family during the years of 1841 until his death in 1883. The 5-acre complex includes his home, furnished as it was in 1883, an exhibit gallery about the Underground Railroad, and a cemetery. During his times as a slave, Josiah put his faith in the Methodist Church. While a slave, he became an ordained preacher. His strong beliefs in human rights transformed him into a powerful leader of the black community in Canada and led him back to the United States to help other slaves reach freedom through the Underground Railroad. Josiah is buried here at the Dawn Settlement, and his legend lives on in Harriet Beecher Stowe's book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. The rest of the day was a pleasant ride as we headed for Rondell Park on the shores of Lake Erie. We camped there and whipped up a delicious spicy chicken enchilada for dinner. The next day was more riding on peaceful farm roads and great weather. We stopped for a snack at a little roadside cafe, where we met a group of bicyclists out for a day ride. It's difficult to see the bike in this picture, but the couple on the left was riding a bike identical to ours, trailer and all. What a coincidence. We ended the day in the little town of Port Dover, and it was my birthday. Rose said we had to celebrate this special day, so she treated me to a night at the quaint Erie Beach Hotel. As Rose checked in, I stayed by the bike to keep an eye on it. It looked like a really nice town to take a rest and celebrate my birthday. We had stopped riding the bicycle by mid-afternoon today, so that we could have time to explore the town of Port Dover and enjoy my birthday. True to the hotel's name, the Erie Beach Hotel, our room was just a short walk to the shores of Lake Erie and a nice sandy beach. We spent the remainder of the afternoon walking along the lake shore, enjoying all the views and taking pictures. It was a fun afternoon and a nice break from our usual pedaling all day. This is what our trip is all about, taking the time to enjoy these small towns and have different experiences on the road. Tomorrow, we'd be moving on to another. We awoke in the morning to pouring rain, but by the time we ate and packed up, it had stopped raining. It turned into a great morning as we followed the shores of Lake Erie. Once again, we were on quiet farm roads and passing through small towns. We found a unique ice cream soda fountain cafe. We may have started the day on quiet roads, but we ended it on busy highways. All of the traffic was headed for the natural wonder, Niagara Falls. We found a hotel in town, and once we got settled in, we went out to explore. This town was chock full of crazy attractions for tourists. Everywhere we turned, there was another sideshow screaming for our attention. We finally made our way through the hectic and crazy streets, and the view before us is what we came to see, Niagara Falls.
So maybe the mist is down there. Zoom in on that.
We made it to Niagara Falls, only 16 days from Chicago by bicycle. We're in pretty good shape and just enjoying the beautiful weather.
Niagara Falls is the collective name for 3 waterfalls that straddle the international border between Canada and the United States. More specifically, between the province of Ontario and the state of New York. They form the southern end of the Niagara Gorge. From largest to smallest, the 3 waterfalls are the Horseshoe Falls, the American Falls, and the Bridal Veil Falls. The Horseshoe Falls lie mostly on the Canadian side, and the American Falls entirely on the American side, separated by Goat Island. The smaller Bridal Veil Falls are also located on the American side. The international boundary line was originally drawn through Horseshoe Falls in 1819, but the boundary has long been in dispute due to the natural erosion. Located on the Niagara River, which drains Lake Erie into Lake Ontario, the combined falls form the highest flow rate of any waterfall in the world, with a vertical drop of more than 165 feet. Horseshoe Falls is the most powerful waterfall in North America, as measured by vertical height and also by flow. With all this water flowing, it was the perfect site for the first hydroelectric generating station in the world.
Diagram of the Niagara area. What I'm going to do now is just take a minute to explain why they built the stations, where they did, how we actually get our water here. So the first thing we have here is the Niagara River. It runs 35 miles from Lake Erie all the way to Lake Ontario. Now when they were looking for a location for the station, instead of building up here at the falls, which has been historically done, they ended up choosing a spot about 5 miles downstream here in Queenston. Now the reason they chose the Queenston location, when they did assemble it up 3.5 stories below that point, with the turbine and the water moving right at the very bottom. Now they just finished an upgrade here, where they took each unit offline for 26 weeks over an 8-year period, and they completely rebuilt them.
We spent the rest of the day sightseeing around the town. We couldn't pass up a major attraction, the Skylon. It was a tall tower with a ride in an outdoor elevator. Rose was a little shaky once we got to the top. But from the top, we had excellent views of the city, the river, and the falls. And if one looked far off into the distance, the silhouette of the Toronto skyline was clearly visible. The next day, we packed up all of our gear and meandered through the city streets of Niagara. We were making our way to the Niagara River Trail and heading north along the river to the town of Hamilton.
We're riding the Niagara River Trail out of Niagara Falls, heading to the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. Purportedly, they say, the prettiest town in Ontario. We're headed almost straight north on a nice trail, paved, and the river's right over here to our right. Every once in a while we catch a view of the river gorge. We probably have about, I don't know, 45, 50 miles to go today. And it's a beautiful day for it.
We were enjoying the quiet, car-free trail, and we took a break overlooking the whirlpool.
Niagara Falls is up the river this way, and we just came down the trail, and you see the gorge across from me. Right here the river makes a 90-degree turn and heads that way. So this is Canada, and that's Canada. And below me is the whirlpool, the famous whirlpool. Down this way on the river is the power station and the Class 6 rapids.
As we continued north towards Lake Ontario, we ran into Kathy and Earl, who were riding some interesting tricycles. They were out for a day ride heading towards Niagara Falls. We continued on our way, enjoying the views on the river. When we came to the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, we stopped for a few minutes to take some pictures and moved on. Soon we came to a bridge. We were stopped waiting for a freighter to go through the drawbridge. As we watched, we noticed that this guy has been in tighter places before. Just look at the condition of the side of that ship. When the ship cleared the passage, the bridge went down and we were on our way. Along our path was the site of Fort George, so we stopped for a visit. Fort George is a historic military structure on Lake Ontario. It was the scene of several battles during the War of 1812. The fort today consists of earthworks and palisades along with an internal structure, including an officer's quarters, blockhouses to accommodate other ranks and families, and a stone powder magazine.
We've been coming up Niagara River along the bike path. It's been very nice, and we finally reached the mouth of the Niagara River.
We stopped at a grocery store to get some provisions before we made camp for the night. While at the store, a woman stopped to look at our bike. She insisted that we ride to her daughter's house to spend the night and to talk to them about bicycle touring. She gave us directions to their house, which took us up the steep Niagara escarpment and along quiet country roads. We ended up having a great night with Heidi, Reuben, and their children, Eden and Harper. Heidi and Reuben are planning to take Eden and Harper on a bike trip from Hamilton, Ontario to Central America. We spent the night talking about our tour and their plans and having a great time with a wonderful family. After leaving Reuben and Heidi, we rode from Hamilton to Toronto. In the big city, we were forced back onto the busy city streets. But we had a nice bike lane and traffic was light, so it was very pleasant. And in the central part of the city, there was a lakeside path where we were invited to have lunch with Carolyn, Clifton, and their children. The weather was very pleasant. We had never been in Toronto before, so we stopped a while to enjoy the ambience of the lakefront. We watched everybody out enjoying this perfect summer weather. Moving northeast out of Toronto, our only route option was a busy 4-lane highway. But when we had stopped for coffee, someone told us about a lakefront trail up ahead. It wasn't easy to find, but we managed to find it and finally got off this busy road. Our stress level dropped dramatically once we were on the quiet trail. Along the way, we met Jean and Marcus. They were volunteers for a bike ride taking place that day. They thought that we were the first bikers out in front of the pack. We told them no, chatted for a while, they took our picture, and we moved on. We spent the night at a Comfort Inn on the outskirts of Oshawa. In the morning, we left the hotel early to beat the traffic and the heat The weather said that it might reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit today. Once out of town, we were along the lake in the early morning mist. We experienced our first flat tire of the trip. It was on the trailer. If we had to have a flat, this was the perfect place for it. It happened right next to a bench, so Gary could sit down and change the flat with ease. And behind us was a bay where there were boats and birds. After we finished off fixing the flat, it was time for lunch. It was so hot out that we both had to have an ice-cold beer with our meal. We finished up the day riding into Port Hope, Ontario. Earlier, we arranged a place to stay overnight with an online bicycle hostess named Catherine. We had our own apartment in the basement of her house, which we shared with Binky and Abby, Catherine's cats. The cats kept Gary entertained. We continued on the next morning. As we progressed towards Ottawa on quiet country roads, we passed through small towns, which provided us the opportunity to take breaks from this heat, get a good meal, and meet interesting people. We stopped and chatted with Claire and Robert and their tandem Dachshund dogs. Claire and Robert also traveled by using a tandem bicycle, and we exchanged stories about our adventures. Today's route included some ferry crossings. It's always a welcome mode of transportation, which provides us a break from pedaling on the bike and gives us views from a different perspective other than the road. Today, we found ourselves riding along the St. Lawrence River. As we rode along the river, we talked about how as school children we had learned about this important passage that led to the Great Lakes. Looking at the water, we were having a nostalgic feeling of when we were children and learning about this great geographical feature. Rose couldn't pass up a chance to dip her feet in the icy cold water of the St. Lawrence River and contemplate how far we have come. It was getting towards the end of the day, and we came across a nice family-owned motel where we spent the night. We brought provisions in their little general store and cooked dinner out on the picnic table. We were joined in the evening by Mr. Yu and his family. It was a pleasant end to a pleasant day. It was up in the morning and heading north, away from the St. Lawrence Seaway. It was raining and cool outside, but we didn't care. At least it gave us a break from the heat that we'd been riding through. The scenery today was drastically different from the landscape that we've been riding through for the past few days. We rode through rustic farm country with farmhouses made of stone and built in the 1800s. They had porches that wrapped around the house. We could imagine sitting on the porch and watching the evening fade away. And we passed through the little village of Athens, which had this amazing mural painted on the side of a building. It rained on us for most of the day's ride today, so we sought shelter in the little town of Merrickville for the evening. Today we rode to the town of Merrickville. We covered about 45 miles. We're still about 50 miles from Ottawa, but we've had enough. We got into town and we were looking for somewhere to stay, but everything is full up. We checked into the campground just across the canal, but the weather looked really threatening today,
and they're predicting big storms for tonight. So we came to the Mill Isle Bed and Breakfast, and we got a room here. Just as we were checking in, a big storm hit, high winds, high rain. It's cleared up now, but boy, we've just timed that right. So now tonight, we're at the Mill Isle Bed and Breakfast.
After checking into our luxurious room, we went for a walk about the town to see the sights. It is the peak of the boating season, and Merrickville is booming with boaters. The Rideau Canal, which runs right through the middle of town, carries on for 125 miles, connecting the city of Ottawa to Lake Ontario. The canal was opened in 1832, and in 2007 it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Merrickville's economy was once based on industry. Today, however, the town's economy relies on the boating tourists. We spent a lazy afternoon just strolling through the attractive town of Merrickville. The town was voted Canada's most beautiful village in 1998. We just soaked in the atmosphere and had a relaxing day. That evening, we retired to our room to update our journal and make plans for flying to Europe. In the morning, we were back on the road. We didn't get far because Rose had to stop to pet 2 huge dogs. We had 50 miles to go today, with the city of Ottawa the destination for the evening. We spent the entire day following the canal all the way to Ottawa. It was flat and very easy to ride. Before we knew it, we were riding into the suburbs of Ottawa. Our target for the day was an area of the city called Old Ottawa South. In Ottawa, we had arranged to stay with Mark and Courtney. Mark is the brother of a friend of ours in Chicago. He graciously opened his house to us so that we could prepare to leave for Europe. We spent 9 luxurious days at Mark and Courtney's. We fell into a routine of starting our morning out with a wonderful cappuccino at the local coffee house just down the street. And then we spent a leisurely day of touring around Ottawa. In the evening, when Mark and Courtney returned home from work, we would all go out and enjoy the culinary treats offered by the city of Ottawa. We spent several days wandering about the capital city of Canada. We toured the library, the Supreme Court, and the Parliament building. It was a great break from our weeks of cycling, and one of the reasons we took this trip, to experience different cultures. Wherever we went, the city was alive with activity. We had a great view of the canal that we had been following on our bicycle. It ends here in Ottawa with a stairway of locks leading down to the Ottawa River.
We have to make room for people that are coming out of the building. So as we head in, we're all going to stay more or less on one side of the sidewalk, okay? And we're going to go single file, just so that people can get out as well.
We were able to catch a tour of the Parliament building and see where the Government of Canada functions. We really enjoyed our time in Ottawa with Mark and Courtney, and we'd love touring this exciting city. But our time in North America has come to an end. It was time to get back on the road, so we had to find a bike shop, get some supplies, pack up the bike. we are off to London to continue with our grand adventure. Thank you for watching Episode 2 of Rose and Gary's Grand Adventure. Be sure to catch Episode 3, where we pick up the journey in London.